and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name's Addie and this is baby Kai. She is 6 weeks old today. This is a very highly requested video. I posted it on my TikTok and on Instagram as well. So if you guys want to see a shorter format video of my birth story, then definitely go check that out. But as you can tell from the title of today's video, it is going to be my unmedicated birth story. My labor was 20 hours. I pushed for 2 hours of that, and so there was definitely a lot. I'm going to do my best to try to cover everything and share everything that I can remember. I have it kind of typed out, so I'm going to be like looking at my phone a little bit just so I don't miss anything. And I just wanted to share like some tips as well, but really just my birth story from when my contractions started to when she was here, and then just like some tips maybe that I have for any of the one that's wanting to do unmedicated, because I know when I was pregnant, literally all I was watching was unmedicated birth stories because I wanted to hear everybody's like positive stories. I tried to stay away from watching like negative birth stories just because I didn't want to get my mindset that it was gonna go bad or anything like that. And so I really loved watching positive unmedicated birth vlogs. I didn't vlog it, it was just too much. I have like a few clips on my phone, but it was definitely intense, and I just wanted to like be very present, and I wanted everyone else in the room to be very present. So I didn't end up filming a vlog, but I knew I wanted to sit down and film like a birth story. She is 6 weeks old, so it's obviously taken me a minute to kind of sit down. Oh, say hello. Oh my god, that was literally so cute. She just spit her passy out. I am going to try to like not wake her up, so if my voice, oh my god, stop, look at that. I love when they smile in their sleep. It is seriously the cutest thing ever, but it's perfect timing because I fed her and hopefully she'll stay asleep if mom doesn't wake her up with her talking. But let's just get into it. I just want to kind of like sit down and be chill. I was like overthinking it too much, I feel like, and I wanted to make it perfect, but I figured just gonna sit in front of the camera, hold the baby, see what happens, just kind of chat and tell you guys how the day went. I seriously love telling this story. It's a lot to remember, and honestly I kind of like not blacked out a little bit, but you kind of like go blank towards the end. Like you're so in the zone of giving birth that honestly I never even knew what time it was. I didn't even know it was so late. She was born at 11:02 p.m. and the newborn noises are literally insane. And I had no idea that it was that late in the day. And my husband was like, you're about to choose your daughter's birthday, so you better push now or she's gonna have a different birthday. And I was like, what? It's that late in the day? So I had no idea. Anyways, so I have it all typed out, so let's just get into it. Around 11:30 a.m. on February 5th was when my contractions started. They weren't super regular. They were more like period cramps, like kind of on and off. I was waking up from them, so I did like know that there was something, and I had like kind of felt like I was going to go into labor soon. To preface, I was 40 weeks and 3 days at this point, or 2 days at this point. My due date was February 3rd, so I was waking up on being 2 days overdue and seriously over it. I was doing so much to try to like induce labor naturally, which I don't think any of it worked besides doing what got the baby in there to get the baby out. That's all I'm gonna say, so I don't get in trouble on YouTube, but that definitely did help. That was the only thing that worked. I feel like the other things are kind of just to keep your mind busy, but I guess let me backtrack like back a few days. I was trying to do everything to induce labor, like I said, walking, curb walking, eating all the things, like trying to prepare my body for labor, doing all the hip circles, all the exercises to make sure she was like in the best position possible. And I do feel like that helped me keep my like mind busy and that kind of stuff, so I wasn't constantly thinking about going into labor. Back to February 5th that morning, I woke up, so I was waking up on and off from those contractions. That started at like 1:30, and then at 5 a.m. I went to use the restroom, and I had like barely any blood, but we had like heard a few stories of people like having blood and things going wrong. And so I woke up my husband, called my mom, like all that kind of stuff, and we ultimately decided that we didn't think anything was wrong. We just felt like it was going to be best to be like shaking and rocking in this whole video, but we felt like it was best to just go in and like check and tell them like everything's okay, just because I would hate obviously for something to happen over something so little. So we loaded everything up in the car around like 4:30 or 5:30. I can't remember the exact time, but we packed our hospital bags and everything just in case they kept us, because our hospital was like 45 minutes to an hour away. And so I was planning on laboring at home, so I was kind of upset that I did have to go like in, but honestly, like after the fact, I was so happy with how everything turned out. So we showed up there around 6:30 or 7, I can't remember. They took me back into a room. They checked me around 7:30 or 8. Again, these times are like a little fuzzy just because I wasn't like super watching the clock, and I was at 2 centimeters dilated. So I had never gotten checked at any of my like doctor's appointments just because I didn't want to, and I knew like so many people that were at a 5 and literally didn't have their baby for 2 weeks later. So I just didn't really care to know or like have it done because I knew it didn't mean anything like going into labor wise. And so I got checked. I was 2 centimeters, and I will say it was kind of uncomfortable. I forgot to say in the car, like my contractions were still continuing, but at this point they were regular. They weren't when we started driving, but I had 3 that were 4 minutes apart and lasting around a minute. So I started tracking them, and then when we got there, they like hooked me up, and I was having contractions like every 3 to 4 minutes, and you could like see on the monitor. But at this point they weren't painful. Like they were just like light period cramps. I could honestly talk through them. I could walk through them. And so when they checked me at 2 centimeters, they said, we'll keep you for like an hour and a half, and if you make any like progression, then we'll keep you, but if not, they'll send me home and I'll come back later. And so for that hour and a half, we walked the halls, like just tried to, I guess, get me to progress. And she came in an hour and a half later to check me. And while she was checking me, my water actually broke, but she had said I really didn't progress at all. I was like maybe 3 centimeters, but I was pretty much still 2 centimeters. But since my water broke, they do keep you, because I think you kind of have like a time clock of like 24 hours. Once your water breaks, they want the baby to be delivered. But there was no meconium or anything like that in my water, so that was good. But I was literally just like sitting on the bed. She was checking me. I'm not really sure if she was checking me and maybe like, you know, did a little bit of a sweep and ended up popping my water. I'm not really sure how that works. She said she didn't. I don't know if I believe her. I feel like she said my water would have broken anyways, but it was just a weird coincidence that it was when she was checking me. But after like reading about it, the way they break water, like they have to go in with like a long needle, so you can't really do it with your fingers. So I think she did do a little bit of a sweep, and that kind of just like helped move everything along, because I don't think I had lost my plug yet. I had noticed like a few maybe like parts of it, but I never noticed like a big one. And so maybe when she went and did the sweep, that kind of helped. I'm not really sure, but that was around 9:30. And so they admitted me into the labor and delivery room. We transferred over to where we were gonna have her. I remember sitting on, we were still in the other room when my water broke. I remember just like crying because she was like, you're gonna have your baby today. And it literally, like, I'm gonna tear up thinking about it now, but it was literally just so like, I was like, wow, like she's coming today either way, because once your water breaks, they would like, if she didn't come within 24 hours, they would like, she's gonna come, she has to come. So she was like, you're gonna have your baby today. It was so emotional. Me and my husband just like looked at each other. I cried. He just like hugged me. And then they moved us into the other room. So at this point, our moms like knew that I was at the hospital, but I had told them to wait until I got admitted because I knew it was still going to be a while because my contractions weren't super close together. So we called my mom, his mom, and my doula. They were all in there when I gave birth. It was seriously like the best team ever. Can't imagine having less people than that. I don't really know how people just do it with just their husband, which is a sweet moment, but it was so nice to have everyone helping just because my labor was so long. And when I get into some of the techniques that I did, it was so nice to have like multiple people so my husband could have a little bit of a break. And then just like, you know, multiple people to have encouragement and that kind of thing. But around, I think 10:30 is when my family showed up. My contractions were around kind of like 2 to 4 minutes. Like they weren't super regular, but they were contractions. So I was in early labor is what they call it. Like I don't think you're in active labor until you're like at past 7 centimeters or 5 centimeters, something like, you know, further than I was. So I was still at 3 centimeters. They actually didn't check me again. I didn't want to be checked because I didn't want to like mentally like get upset or anything like that. I just wanted to listen to my body. And so I was walking the halls for probably 2 hours, an hour. Like we would stop in the room and then I would go walk again. It was just like a little loop. So we would walk and try to get baby girl moving, that kind of thing, get my contractions going. So after they were like too hard to walk through, like I would start stopping in the hall. That's when it just kind of became like uncomfortable to walk through them. And so they were lasting for around like 45 seconds to a little bit over a minute at this point. And so, oh, hello, don't scratch yourself. She always scratches herself and it's so sad. So at this point, it was around 11 o'clock and like everything was still going good. Like I was super positive. It wasn't hurting that bad. Like the contractions were so bearable. Like I honestly enjoyed them because I knew it meant she was coming and labor was happening. I was so ready to go into labor. So like the first few hours, like I was so excited. Like I was like kind of loving the pain because I just knew it meant I was going to meet her sooner. And so we moved back into the room. Like we ended up just staying in there, not walking the halls anymore. And I really loved sitting on the yoga ball. So that was my favorite. I would lean over the bed. So I had the yoga ball like towards the end of my bed. I would sit on the yoga ball when I had a contraction and do like hip circles. And I was here on the ball for probably, let's see, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours is when like I literally contracted on this yoga ball for 6 hours, which it didn't feel like it. But I would squeeze a comb. I had my hypnobirthing music on. I had essential oils going. I was taking some like arnica, which you can Google that, but this was my doula was giving me all of that. It just kind of like helps with pain management. I had the TENS machine on, and then I also had like a heating pack that they would heat up in the microwave and run back in and put on my back. So every time I had a contraction, I kept my TENS machine on, but I would squeeze the comb, go quiet, do hip circles, and they would put the heating pack on my back and do like lower back compressions. And this made my contractions feel so like bearable, like I could deal with them, even though I knew they were like getting worse and like progressing or getting better, might I say, just because you are moving further along. But at this point, they were lasting around 1 minute and 30 seconds, and they were more like 2 minutes apart. So it was progressing. Like I said, I didn't get checked, and so I didn't know like if I was actually progressing, but I just didn't want to mentally until around 5 p.m. things got intense, and they had been intense until maybe like 3 to 5 is when I was like, this is getting pretty intense, and I want to know how much longer like we think I'm having and like how far along I might be. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I had to know like maybe if I progressed at all. And so at 5 o'clock, after doing all of that for a while, they came in and I was only at 5 centimeters. So that whole time I had only progressed maybe 2 centimeters, and that was definitely a little frustrating. And I tried not to let it get to me mentally because I knew it probably would, but I felt like I did do a good job of not letting it get to me. And so they were like, you need to switch up positions. So I ended up trying to go and get in the bathtub, and so they started that for me, but I had to take off the TENS machine and they had to stop doing, you know, the counter pressure, all of that kind of stuff. And when I was trying to go to like transfer to the bathroom to get into the bathtub, I had like 2 different contractions while doing that, and it just hurt so bad not having all of those pain management methods that I had been using. And so I was like, got a little like, I could tell my mindset was shifting a little bit, and I definitely didn't want that. I didn't want to like get out of the headspace I was in, because I really felt like I was in a good headspace. And so I tried to get in the bathtub. I was like standing with my feet in the bathtub trying to sit down, and had another contraction, and that was very painful. That was the most painful contraction I probably had up till that point, just because I didn't have all of my pain management like helping. And so it was kind of nice to know that it was all really helping. So if you are planning on doing unmedicated, I definitely recommend all of the like things that I said, and I have a link or like all of the stuff that I got and used, just if anyone wants to check it out. I'll leave a little link down below for all of that stuff. But around 5 p.m., like I said, I tried to change positions because they were like, you're not progressing fast enough really. And so I needed to switch it up to try to get her to move a little bit. But like I said, the bathtub was not working. And I felt like, you know, this might be a little bit TMI, but this is an unmedicated birth story. So if you clicked on this, then you probably know that. So if things gross you out at all, then I would definitely click off this video now. But I started to feel like I had to use the restroom number 2, but it wasn't like a pushing feeling. Like I obviously wasn't ready to push. I was only 5 centimeters, and I knew I wanted to like use the restroom before I started pushing, just because like I didn't want to be using the restroom while I was giving birth, like pushing, because I've heard that definitely happens, which it also did, even though I did end up using the restroom. So I told everyone, I was like, I'm gonna try to use the restroom really quick. Everybody left, and then I started puking, and I had only thrown up once, but it was just like a few times, like maybe it was like a minute. I was throwing up, so I was throwing up and using the restroom at the same time. So this was a very humbling moment for me. So my husband came in, my mom came in, we tried to get me all cleaned up to get moved back onto the ball. But at that point, I knew that if I wanted this to progress at all, I couldn't sit back down on the ball. And so I did maybe an hour standing and leaning over the bed, but put my TENS machine back on, like all that kind of stuff. So I was leaning over the bed, doing all of that, like literally just contracting. They were getting intense at this point, like pretty, not unbearable, obviously, because I did get through it, but they were pretty hard. Like, thinking about it now it's still a little hard to think about. Like, I want to have another baby, but it definitely was a very intense moment. All worth it, but it was very intense at these hours of labor. So at this point, I'd been in labor for a while. And so I was laboring for like 2 hours, standing an hour or 2 hours. And at 7 p.m., they came back in to check me to see if I had progressed at all. And I was only at a 7, but at that point, like I was progressing faster than I was before, and so we knew moving around was kind of helping. And then I decided I wanted to try to do a few contractions like on my hands and my knees, like on the bed, and see how that felt. So around 7 p.m. I think I got up on the bed and did like a few, like they can put a bar over the bed, and so I put my hands up there and kind of like contracted that way, I guess, and leaned over and tried to like do some hip circles that way, breathing through them. And then around, let's see, 9 p.m. I want to say, so 7 to 9 I was laboring on the bed, and around 9 p.m., maybe even a little bit earlier than that, I was like, I feel like this baby is coming, I feel like I have to push, I feel like I need to use the restroom, that kind of thing, like all the signs of pushing. And everybody was like, you're not dilated yet, like enough yet, you can't start pushing, whatever, all that kind of stuff. So every time I needed to get checked, you have to lay on your back for them to check you, kind of. And it was so hard because my contractions were getting closer and closer together. At this point, they were anywhere from a minute to 2 minutes apart. And so by the time you were done with the contraction, you were pretty much having another one. They were pretty much back to back at this point, like by the time I finished one, and lasting around a minute and a half each. And so I was in a lot of pain, and I felt the need to push. And so I had my midwife came in, she checked me again, and I think I was only at 9 centimeters at this point, so I just wasn't quite there yet. I think this was 8:30. And then around, my body like just literally started pushing, like I couldn't stop it. And so I knew I just wanted to listen to my body, and my doula felt comfortable with me like trying a few like practice pushes, I guess, so not like completely pushing. And they, around 10 o'clock, they thought it was, maybe it was a little bit later, so I started pushing. I don't really remember if they told me that I could, but like my body just kind of took over. I don't think I was like 10 centimeters yet, or like fully effaced, what they call it. But I do think she actually said I was fully effaced, just not 10 centimeters yet. And so I could start pushing a little bit. I honestly don't remember, but I know from 9 to 11 is when I pushed. And so I was pushing for about an hour, and then they came back in to check me, and they were like, you need to use the restroom. They thought they were seeing my bladder, but I guess it was actually her head. And so they were like, you need to use the restroom, like you need to pee. And I was like, there's no way I'm getting up to go pee. Like I just can't do it. I can't get up to go pee. Like I can pee on the bed if you want me to, but I cannot get up to go pee. And so I was like, I don't have to pee. I don't think it's my bladder. Like I kind of just kept listening to my body, kept pushing and pushing. It's intense. It's a lot. Like I would have a contraction. There was no time in between them really. And so I was up on my hands and my knees on the bed. That's how I was pushing for 2 hours. So on my hands and then on my knees. And every time I would have a contraction, I would let it get to like its peak. And so the first like 20 seconds of a contraction, like it kind of starts, and then it gets like to its peak, and so I would try to deal with the pain at that point, and then I would start pushing at the like top of my contraction. And so I'd push 3 times. So I'd bend down and push, and then I would lean back up and breathe for a second, and then push, and then lean back up for a second, and then lean back down and push. And so I did that 3 times per contraction, but you can really only push during a contraction. Like you have to push with the contraction, so that's your body like helping you, like actually pushing. But like I said, there was really no time in between the contractions, which was definitely very difficult. I was trying my best to like breathe and keep my breathing under control. It was definitely hard to do, but it was actually really nice. My mom and my doula were like breathing with me, and it was nice to have someone breathe with me and like helped me not, when I started to over breathe and breathe too fast, it kind of helped me like remind me to slow down and match their pace of breathing. I think my husband thought this was a little bit funny, all of us breathing like that, but it worked. And he was literally so amazing this whole time. So they were all switching off, doing the counter pressure, all that kind of stuff. But at this point when I was pushing, I didn't really necessarily need the counter pressure just because I was pushing and there wasn't anything that could really help with the pain of pushing, because it switched from like pain in your stomach and your back to pain down there and like a pushing feeling. And so around 10 o'clock, I think they came back and checked me and said I was 10 centimeters and I was like, I could have this baby. This 2 hours was literally a blur to me. When they told me I'd pushed for 2 hours, I was like, no, I didn't. Like, it felt long, but I didn't believe them that it had been that long. And so around, I don't know, like the last, I think maybe like 5 contractions, they kept telling, maybe 10 contractions. So the last maybe like 45 minutes, they kept telling me, she's so close, like we can see her, all these kind of things. And I thought that meant like she was closer than she was, because it was still 45 minutes until she was actually here. And pushing her out was literally the best feeling ever. So I had switched and laid on my side once I like felt the urge to like really push and like she was actually coming out. I had laid on my side and I put my legs, like, if you can imagine, my leg up like this. My husband held it and then the bottom leg did the same thing. And so this was a very out in the open position for me, but it really worked and it really like helped to be able to do it. I couldn't lay on my back. It was so uncomfortable for me to lay on my back, so I knew I couldn't labor on my back at all. I wanted to be like on my, you know, hands and knees is what I thought I was gonna do. But after being on my hands and knees for 2 hours, my arms got so sore. The next 3 days I had felt like I had done the hardest upper body workout, because my arms were literally so tired from holding myself up and pushing and leaning forward and leaning back. Like I was literally like doing push-ups, and so I was so sore. So by the time like she was ready to come out, I knew that I needed to lay down a little bit, but I couldn't lay like flat on my back. So I laid on my side and had my legs up in the air, kind of like that, and my husband held my top leg. And then around, let's see, 10:45, I think that was the last like few contractions that I was having. And at this point my midwife was in there, but somebody else, there was 5 other girls like at the same stage of labor as me, which was literally so crazy because everyone was kind of stalled. We were all stalled and then we all kind of progressed. And so one of the other baby's heart rates had ended up like dropping a little bit. The baby ended up being fine, but my midwife had to run into the other room. And so my doula and my husband literally thought we were gonna have to deliver this baby by ourselves, because I was like, she's coming out, like literally this push, she's gonna come out. And so my husband like put on gloves, like we literally thought we were gonna have to deliver the baby by ourselves. But the last 2 contractions, she ended up making it back in the room so we could finish this and she could deliver the baby. And the moment that your baby gets put on your chest is literally the most surreal moment ever. Like you can't even explain it until you experience it. Like I just remember crying and weeping, and like she was crying, and it was literally just like the sweetest moment ever. I just remember looking up at my husband and just like, oh, like I wish I could relive this moment over and over again. And I guess that's why people keep having babies over and over again. And I just remember saying, I did it. Like I did it. I had the dream unmedicated birth that I wanted to do. Like honestly, like afterwards, like I said to my husband, I was like, I didn't think I was gonna be able to do it. Like I had always, you know, like just told people like I'm doing it, like this is what I'm doing, like I know I want to do it. And that's what I was telling myself too. But in the back of my head, I was like, I don't really know if I'm gonna do it successfully. Like I don't know if I'm actually gonna be able to do it, because I obviously had never given birth before. I didn't know the pain. Like I didn't know if I was actually gonna be able to do it. And I was so proud of myself. So if you are thinking about doing an unmedicated birth, just know that feeling afterwards is seriously unbeatable. And like, not that I felt like $1,000,000 after she was out, but I felt so good. I was so awake. She was so wide awake. Like she literally came out with her eyes open, which I know a lot of people say when they have an epidural, their baby like doesn't open their eyes for like a few days, kind of like they will, but she was literally wide awake. You could see her eyes. It was amazing. Like she was so like there, I guess, not like super tired. And it was so nice for me to be able to like be there, be present. Like I could get up, honestly, like an hour after I gave birth, once the golden hour was up and I was holding her, I went and used the restroom. I stood up. It was painful to pee, but other than that, like I was able to stand up. I did stand up slowly, but she was like, stand up very, like you may not be able to get up and go and use the restroom yet. But I was able to, and it was super nice. Like I loved being able to like move around that night and take care of her and not come off of any like you know, not come off of the epidural. Obviously I've never had the epidural, so I don't know how it makes you feel, but I was super glad that I was able to do it. At no point in labor did I ever say like, I want the epidural, because I just knew if I asked for it, then my mindset would be switched and I wouldn't be able to like push through. And so I never like let myself say like I wanted the epidural or I couldn't do it, just because I knew myself and I knew if I went there, then it'd be hard to get back to where I was. And so that was super helpful for me not to like ask for it. And I know that's like easier said than done, but I just knew, like I said, if I asked for it, I was gonna be getting it. So I tried not to ask for it, and that was very successful. And then I'll talk a little bit about, so she was born, that was 11:02 p.m. She was 8 pounds 3 ounces. I can't remember exactly how long she was. That's kind of bad of me because it just happened. But she, yeah, was a big baby, and it wasn't even like a very cone shape, which I was very prepared for it to be, because like obviously the baby just went through a birth canal like it's gonna be, and it wasn't. And I think it just went down super easy. I don't know if that's because I like pushed for a very long time and her head had time to like slowly, like, I don't know, come down the birth canal, who knows. But she's literally the most precious baby ever. It was heaven. I honestly loved being at the hospital. Like, I look back at all the videos and pictures and really enjoyed my time there, honestly. Like, it was hard having the nurses come in and out, but I seriously just like loved those first few days with her. It was so amazing. But that is my unmedicated birth story. I hope it kind of all made sense. I know I was like a little bit all over the place, rocking back and forth trying to keep her asleep, but I just wanted to come on and share, because I know I had a lot of questions and a lot of people asking just kind of like the story of it and how it went, because I have a lot of people that want to do unmedicated births, and I just want to like encourage you, if it's something you want to do, then you can do it. You just have to prepare. I think mentally was the biggest thing. Like, mentally preparing was the biggest thing and best thing that I did. Just knowing it was gonna be painful, but I could do anything for 45 seconds to a minute at a time, and that the pain was going to end. It wasn't gonna last forever. It was just going to be one day or however long it ended up being. And so that was another thing. When I was like having a contraction, I just like reminded myself that it's going to be over, and every contraction is one contraction closer to meeting my baby. And so those encouragement things that I said in my head really did help a lot, along with the Hypno Christian Birthing. That was an app that I used. I'll link the app down below because I've got a lot of questions on that as well. But that is my unmedicated birth story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. But I've shared a lot more about my birth and like kind of post-birth and postpartum, that kind of stuff, early like end of pregnancy stuff over on my TikTok. So definitely go follow me there if you want to see more of that. And then you can definitely follow me on Instagram if you want to see more cutie pictures of baby Kai. She is literally more adorable than I ever thought she could be. And I might be biased, but I mean, I am biased because I am her mom, but literally this newborn life has been hard, and I want to share on vlogs with y'all like kind of just like the truth of mom life and newborn life, because while it is amazing and beautiful, it definitely has had its hard moments, and I just want to like share all of that with y'all. And so definitely subscribe if you want to see like more of mom life and that kind of thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed my unmedicated birth story, and like I said, if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know.